full circle to me. And to add to that, I just accepted my first offer for a developer job.
Ooh!
So I got truly full circle.
Nice, man.
And I went the boot camp route, if that means anything.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey guys, I'm Jason Walkow. I founded a recruiting company. It's an IT consulting firm called Italians in 2010. Italians?
Sponsored like a year's worth, and I was like, I have no clue what it's called.
We sponsored both the JavaScript for a while. I'm also a programmer. So we sold that company in April. I started a new company called JayScott Systems. It's just me. I've been working as a full stack developer on contract for the last year and a half at PGA. I also am working part-time at a company called myphoto.com as also a full stack engineer. So yeah, that's it. That's what I'm doing.
So you sell your company, JayScott LLC.
What's that? I sold the brand.
No,
Your new company. Yeah.
You sell your name?
JayScott. That's not my name. I didn't name trademark.
Who's he join us or?
So my name is Rick Blalock. I'm
Really?
Director of Engineering at Levatas.
Woohoo!
So I'm Jermey. You guys see me on the Slack channels and all that good stuff as Jermo, so that's my handle on stuff. I'm currently a lead front-end developer over here at Visual. I've been doing this for a while. Been there over the past 3 years, so that's what I do. And then we got this schmo over here.
Yeah, I remember when I was like 15 years in business. That was
Like, I didn't know anything.
So yeah. So I don't know if you guys know me. I'm both you guys know each other for a while. So I've been here for a long time. Like this gentleman, actually, did you mention you were a teacher?
No.
He was a teacher, and so was I, and not around the same time, but it was a long time ago, and we even taught this stuff.
Yep.
So we've been doing this a long time.
So we sent out a questionnaire. We got a couple of questions that we're going to go through to kind of kick things off, but this is meant to be a conversation. You know, the whole reason why I have the panel from like just getting out of boot camp to over 100 years of experience in one individual is to kind of give you guys the breadth, right? So it's like and we have different disciplines too. Like I focus mainly on the front end, but I can do the full stacks. We got a back end developer, we got an architect over here, we got a full stack engineer, and a couple of front end developers. Breaking into the industry. So there's no question that not one of us couldn't answer, right? So feel free to ask anything that pops to mind. Does anybody have any kickoff questions that they want to start off with the list? I know you're itching. You're always itching to start.
Well, this is to you if anybody else has worked with WordPress. My question is, have you ever worked with the headless WordPress? And if you have, what are some things what are some kinks you found that were difficult to work out?
So the headless WordPress is just a RESTful endpoint that comes with out of the box from WordPress now. That you can just hit an endpoint. You get the full admin system of like creating blog posts or tags or any categories and things that you want to do with that. So yes, I haven't put a client site in production doing that. Because why? It's a lot of extra work for no real gain. It's blog website, so I'm gonna build a blog website. I have seen other people utilize it for like a little product, like a software as a service type thing, where they didn't want to deal with building the backend. WordPress comes default with the 5 user profiles that you can have people log in and do stuff with, and then you build your front end via in that context. So. Did I answer your question? Yes, it's doable. Like, what was your other portion of it?
My other portion of it was like, would it be better for performance purposes to do headless WordPress? Is there any performance gain?
This reminds you of that.
Performance anyway.
No, it's come on. It's fine. It's a good solution for a lot of people with that. I'm a big fan of WordPress.
It's a reason it's 30% of the way.
33% of the.
Oh Jesus! Every time I quote that number, it's always higher.
Yeah.
I've heard 33. Nowadays I'm hearing 40. So.
But you know, this is the same answer as every single one of the questions, including some of the ones that I have here, about why should I do this library or this package or this solution? And I think you're thinking it backwards. You should think of the problem first with anything, and you shouldn't look into, well, this is an interesting answer, how can I apply it? You don't have that problem. First of all, if it's not obvious, right? And second of all, if you're looking in to see what's going on. Unless, like what you're doing, which is, you know, I want to have it all as you know, as bills in my wallet, so the moment someone walks in, that's a bad analogy, you know, bullets in my gun, so at the moment someone comes in there, I can tell them this is your answer to that question. But I think it's, there's another competitor, which is, again, a headless CMS, and I'm like, why? Why would you do that?
Yeah, reasons, right? So I mean, like you said, solve the problem. Don't use the tool to create the problem. Solve something. Right? You know, like my clients don't need it. They need a WordPress website. I'm not building a RESTful endpoint because I have to build everything from scratch. I don't want to do that. I just want to build the front-end logic, hook up a custom post type, and let them fill out their own content. So it depends. The other aspect would be, do you want to create your own RESTful endpoint? Like, is that's what I would use it for. Like, as a completely separated silo, I'd make a custom post type in WordPress be books if I'm selling books or something. Populate that, and then on a completely different front-end site or my mobile app, consume that endpoint, and that could be a possible solution. I don't have to build the logic of like what my user roles are going to be, what the CRUD application is going to be, anything like that. So that might be a reason why I would use and separate those two, right?
That's a good point. One of the things they do at once of the React training, when they want to train you for a couple of hours on how to create React native apps, and then this was in the WordPress, I guess I just realized it was a WordPress.
The WordCamp.
Thank you. Did you see it?
Yeah, I attended and I saw that, and I did find it interesting how they actually integrate into it.
And that's the only time I heard of something that made sense where, you know, why am I using WordPress without the front end? Well, because I've made a mobile app that is essentially, because this website happens to be a blog, and so I want to have a mobile version of that, not just be the mobile website, but just have, you know, where I control each one of the things. And they were utilizing what it's built into every WordPress, which is that API.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say in most cases I've seen, the purpose behind the CMS tends to be almost for usability for the client, let's say. So I remember at the hackathon, for example, since we were building things for people who weren't necessarily like as tech savvy, something very sustainable for them was something easier for them to edit. So the CMS came in handy. And then just on the other side, you know, what these guys are pointing out about the development side of things, I mean, you can always develop locally. You can use like local by Flywheel or something so that you can get kind of the benefit of both worlds. But as far as taking away the admin panel CMS side of it, I guess they're more well spoken on that than I am. But yeah.
That's what we're here to do here. Everybody's like,
Did that answer your question there? Does anybody else have anything else to add?
cool. All right, so we had a couple of questions online on the form that we have there, and a couple of them that I pulled out of my, well, you know, figure it out. Yeah, exactly, the bucket, that's a great word, better than my analogies than I am. And there were some questions about, this was a question, and it looked like we were asking for customer support questions, so they were asking me a particular problem with this, but if you did ask this question, I deployed an Angular app, and then I'm getting a 404 error when I go to that particular URL in there. Do you guys want to answer questions like that, or you want to go more generic questions? You want to answer that?
How?
Oh.
Look at the logs at the surface, see what it says.
Oh, no. So that's an Angular thing, and same thing as React. So when you surf through the web page, you're not actually going to these directories as you're used to a website, you know, /users, /list, /Joey. And then all of a sudden Joey's page comes up. But then if you copy that URL and send somebody else, it's going to say, no, that doesn't exist.
Well, it depends how you architect it. I mean, for React, it depends how you build your components, right? So if you're using something like React routing, which is front-end routing,
Yep.
if your state is managed outside of that particular route,
Yep.
then you might go to that URL and not have state. So if you don't have state, then the website, you know, will crash.
Right.
But if you made sure that you architected where if you're using a redox or you're using some other mechanism of, you know, hydrating the tree with state when the components mount because you're out some particular route, you shouldn't have that issue.
If you set up the web server.
Right,
It's
so
also
not even the web server, just the React application, right? So if you're using React,
this is 404. This is not hitting the React application.
well, yeah, you can get a 404 if you're willing to run. Like typically, if you set up your React router, you would set up a catch-all, and that component would be a 404. So you would see a 404, but you might not be getting it from the server. To your point, so I guess you would have to look at the network.
I was gonna say there's 2 points, right? So if I deploy to Now or Heroku or anything like that, and I do a single page app, I have to give it a specific. I don't think it's an HT access file to say that everything starts off with port. Yeah. So
environment variable for the port.
So to directly answer the question, there's 2 aspects of it. One, what you're talking about, and one, what's the server doing to know not to look for a physical file directory, like HT access or the equivalent on whatever platform you're on.
Right.
So you have the right answer.
Right.
So
if you just deployed it, my first thing to do would look at your server logs and see what the server's doing. If the server looks like everything's okay, then you have to look at your front end.
I'll answer you. The server is saying that it doesn't have a directory called /user/Johnny.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you set up your apps. But what?
Something important to that.
that's right. That's exactly right. But so people forget it. That's the problem we're getting with single-page applications. The problem that I'm so old, I literally had to explain to programmers that when they see their code, and this is common in PHP, you see HTML, HTML, PHP, PHP, HTML, HTML. And when Ajax started doing something where the page used to be able to essentially change some things around, they didn't realize that the PHP was happening on the server side and the HTML was happening on the client side. This is the exact same situation. And what's happening is, if you don't tell the web server that all pages, / whatever, goes to the initial React page, then React is not going to start up. Because it's an application that lives on the server. And the browser is literally thinking that there is a server backend that's called /user/Johnny.
An actual folder and directory location.
That's right.
Yeah,
That is what it's looking, unless you do an HT access where you get a catch-all, things like that.
That's not.
That would happen if there's some like old school HTTP server that's serving it up. But like
You would have a bundle file on your client. As long as that's downloaded, then that's what's serving.
But it's not.
Until you're getting data from an endpoint, right? Which is different than routing.
But it has to start. That's the
Right. So if they
React
have to
angle.
start, then maybe they did something wrong with the.
it's like an
Exactly, they're
old
not
school
done
way
yet.
of setting up a server like with Apache and you've got like your rewrites and stuff because the server's doing it before you even get to the directory.
Sure.
But like
That's it. Now it's
everything I've ever worked in the last like 4 years, containerized, like it didn't worry about that.
But even then, the Nginx, pronounced it wrong. Nginx
If you
has
can
to tell
figure
it.
it right, yeah.
Has to tell it to go. Everything goes to that one
But
single
usually you
location.
just wildcard it, right? You point to that directory or whatever, and you're serving that out // and that's it.
And that's where we feel as developers that we're no, it's so easy. We Dockerize it like that, and there's still this the IT DevOps people that have to set that up right because we've created everything, but from our starting point, from the React, from Angular being loaded up and being on that page.
Works on localhost. Should be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Works on Angular.
That's
there,
also
but-
taking into account that he has control over that back end because for my case, for example, working with Shopify, I can't change any of those settings on the server side.
Exactly.
So with my current store, redesigning the storefront, and
Yes.
we want everything to work through Ajax. So for every time a client hits any endpoint
Right.
that Shopify makes available, I have to render the page perfectly as they would as I had every one of those HTML files.
Right.
But when they click anything, I have to hijack that link and request a different version of that page with just the content that I want to rerun on the middle of the page.
Right.
So I actually have every page works if you just land on it, and it actually takes you to the URL. If I break that, it's going to be a 404.
Exactly. You guys
or-
ever heard of server-side rendering?
I was actually just going to ask if that's
Exactly.
addressed at all.
That is exactly what server-side rendering is. That's where you can go /user/Johnny, and there's actually /user Johnny.
Because that's a big problem with like SEO and stuff. Because if you're not serving up a blank page, right, there's actually something already rendered when you choose a browser.
Exactly. I thought that was a silly question. That was fantastic. All right, one of you one at a time. when you do interviews, and this is, I guess, for people that have done interviews either as a developer where you're interviewing someone or as a manager that chooses people, do you take into account online certificates like the Microsoft MCA or whatever the hell I have, boot camp, or do you only want computer science degrees from a good college? One at a time. So, Jared.
No, I don't give a shit.
Okay.
I want to see what you can do.
Okay.
So what I'm looking at is your ability to answer my questions and think through problems.
Okay.
You know, if you have examples of your work, you know, I'm looking at your code to see what you do. And I'm not looking at your code to see correctness or the way that I would do things. I just want to see how you think. So I think certificates are pointless because anybody can get them, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean I complete that particular thing. I just spend next to lunch time and I have a certificate or something, in my opinion. And then, you know, I've seen people from, you know, high-end schools that come out not knowing squat, and people who have finished boot camp being rock stars. So the where you come from doesn't matter.
Nice. Rick?
Yeah, so there's a balance between all this. So at the end of the day, people who come out of schools in computer science, like we've hired people, when I was at Accelerator, we hired people from MIT, from Harvard, from Stanford, from community colleges, and the people who are the best people aren't, it never maps back to, well, they went to Harvard, of course, they're awesome. It maps back to their passion, their experience, those kind of things.
Wow.
And so, I mean, some of the guys that we hired from some of those Ivy League schools were really good, but it wasn't because of their education, it was because of their drive and their desire, and things like that. So that's way more important than whether it's a piece of paper. I will say the people that had the piece of paper had a little more depth than the people that didn't, just from a general computer science perspective. But that does, again, I would look at that person and say, I'm going to put you on this type of project where we have to worry about, you know, cellular automated encryption around our binary files.
Right.
But I wouldn't put this guy over here who's a full stack developer on it, who maybe doesn't have that kind of background, and he would hate that anyway. I put him over here because he's super productive on anything that's cutting edge, front end and back end development. He would be much more associated or suited to that. So anyway, the point is, education is not a panacea, but it's also not like I don't care, whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a balance between like when you need those. Certifications, it depends on the certification. If you have a Cisco certification, you've probably done some stuff because it's hard to get certain Cisco certifications.
Right, you got to keep it up.
Yeah, yeah. But like some of the intro AWS certifications are just a click, yeah, I can
Right.
I'm an architect at AWS.
But you paid money for it.
Yeah, that's true. When I got to this country, I don't know why I took
Some of them are legit. No doubt, some of them are legit. Yeah. But it's one of those things, and also there's like there's a nuance. I'm talking from like a hiring person. There's a nuance to your resume. If you have all of these certifications and you just want to put them as the first thing on your resume, that's always a red flag for me, even if you have all of them. Because it's like, does this guy actually know what all these are? Like, I've gotten resumes, and literally half of the pages, these acronyms. And half these acronyms I don't know what they are. And that doesn't tell me anything about you. It doesn't tell me anything about your experience, what's unique about you. It just tells me that you know a bunch of acronyms. And then the acronyms are like HTML. And then, like,
JayScott.
Embedded, it's like there's one XSLT transformation.
Yeah.
You know,
The flip side of that is that, yeah, I retired for a short time trying to get myself back into the business again, and
right.
I applied for positions on these sites, and they would list everything,
Right.
and it's
As the requirements for a job, you mean?
yeah, required,
Mhm.
and they would have 30 different languages, 5 different operating systems.
Right.
And I'm thinking, all right,
Warning flag.
what, my wife's an OBGYN, she's not a brain surgeon,
Right.
she's not a cardiovascular.
So they even had OBGYN in there? What was that? That's impressive, that's impressive.
That's my first one.
Wow.
But you know, the thing is, I think this happens from both sides. So you see people's resumes, and then you got all the resume systems now that basically scan it in, and it's just looking for keywords anyway. So a lot of people are writing their resumes just for the keyword match. And it's all recruiters.
So
you
wait a
have
minute.
a-
So it's an
Valio,
interesting
for
point.
example, you know, that's used by a whole bunch of different companies. You know,
It's an interesting point, and it's a big problem because
Jason as a recruiter.
it's actually not. So the systems typically, especially the systems at big companies that sit in front of HR, typically aren't the ones that aren't really scanning to keywords. What they're doing is they're putting them in a pipeline, and HR is looking at them. The problem is 95% of HR people don't know anything about engineering, right? And hiring managers are usually too busy or don't have an interest or whatever, so they don't even write the job description. So they might have a conversation with HR. HR will try to take down what they can, having absolutely no background in technology, and then try to put together a job description from that. And what ends up happening is you end up with a lot of keywords on your job description. You end up with a lot of unrealistic years requirements for different things. And what happens is you might get ruled out for a position that you're qualified for by HR, but not by the hiring manager. So there is a little bit of a gateway issue there, where you're trying to get your resume seen, but they're not even getting seen by the right people, or they're getting ruled out by people that don't understand what they're really actually looking for. So it is an interesting problem without a really great solution right now. So, I mean, it's hard, right? Because on the other side of that is, if you take away that gateway, now the hiring manager's wage, you'll put up a job posting and you'll get 500 resumes. 10 of them might be qualified. So there has to be some type of mechanism for you to wow. And it's an interesting problem.
You know,
unfortunately, not a great solution right now.
And you just sucked it up and you dealt with it.
Yeah, but you quickly, I mean, I've done this.
To now, though,
I mean, you learn how to say, all right, this, and you just, you've been next to you.
But I can tell you that, for example, there's everybody here, all 300 of you, and then, and then all of a sudden it goes down to an HR man, it goes down to recruiters. And they're correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but you're like, what we do differently is we filter out the bad ones. So then it gets to about 100. And then the HR person goes down to 50. And then eventually what happens is they hand it over to the developers. In a certain company, they did it at Norwegian Cruise Line. That's beyond what you guys do over there, And then when we get them, we do that. I do a quick analysis. I do like the first paragraph, the first half of your page didn't interest me. I'm telling the recruiter, nope.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possible problem as it stands right now, because what happens is you put at my recruiting firm, we would put up a job posting on LinkedIn or Monster, JayScott or whatever, and we would get 1 million hits, right? 1 million resumes. A lot of them aren't even in the country. A lot of them aren't qualified for the job, and you have to sift through all that. So what most staffing firms would do is try to either, if the company allows, because a lot of companies make you go to HR, and that's it, right? Like we did a lot of business with Deloitte. Deloitte's a huge company, big systems integrator. Every single thing went through their recruiters, right? Most of the time their recruiters were somewhat technical and understood what they were looking for, but the problem gets exacerbated when they're not technical, right? So, what a staffing firm wants to do is go directly to the hiring manager and send them 2 or 3 or 4 resumes that are most qualified. What happens is sometimes recruiters will tell you that they're sending you your resume and then not.
Right.
Maybe because they have a better candidate or someone less expensive or whatever the case may be. So that's another thing that happens that's not great.
Perfect. I love the insight.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
that's true, and that's what ends up happening. Or they tell you they're working on a position for company A, and they don't actually have a really great relationship over there. So while they might have sent your resume, they might have never heard anything because the hiring manager is really busy, don't have time to go through 1 million resumes. So it's, hiring in this field is a very difficult problem on both sides because of all the reasons we talked about.
So with your experience, let me change the question originally, which was, is it certifications and boot camp or degrees?
For me,
what do they ask you? What are the people that are hiring?
I mean, it's totally dependent on the actual hiring manager, right? Like, sometimes they really feel like somebody should have a computer science degree. Some people don't. It really depends on the hiring manager. As far as certifications as a software developer, there really isn't any, right? Like, I mean, I know there's Microsoft certified solutions, whatever.
Yep.
But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't put so much weight in that personally. When I'm interviewing people or looking at resumes, I obviously don't care about certifications or degrees because I don't have one, right? So I'd be a hypocrite if I cared about a computer science degree. But what I like to do, I like to look at your code, right? Either through something, send me some code that you've done and you're proud of that's relevant to what we do, or let's sit down and let's write something really quick in an hour and see kind of how you construct your code and your files and your variables and how you put functions together in JavaScript or whatever. That's what I like to look at. Because there's people, we've interviewed people that have 10 years of experience that don't do as well in a very simple code test as people that have 2 years of experience. So I found that years of experience aren't really necessarily a strong indicator of how well you might do at the job.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I've done interviews where it's like people, they're coming in for senior developers, and they're like, I have 10 years experience, that means the qualification. I mean, you've really done, like, you've done 1 year, 10 years in a row. You know what I mean? It's like you haven't pushed yourself, you haven't gotten better.
Or you haven't worked with guys that are helping you and making you better, mentoring you, right? Like 10 years of shitty experience is not great, right? So it kind of depends.
Well, and then another caveat to that too is the type of 10 years. So I'll give you an example. So a lot of the Silicon Valley companies, Airbnb, stuff, they're starting to put engineers in really, really confined boxes. It's like I was a front-end dev for the notification icon, on Facebook for 5 years. And so you look at it, you're like, wow, really? Front-end dev at Facebook? That's really cool. And then you kind of find out that they worked in this really small, confined box. And they were really good at what they did, but that's it. You know what I mean? And then you throw them in like an agency scenario, like a Levatas or Arrow, and it's like, dude, you're going to be on this project and this project and this project, and you got to think about it differently. Yeah. And you're going to have to go from a meeting to coding to another meeting. It's just a different dynamic. It's just somebody from like Airbnb who's stuck in that mode. They're used to this huge support structure that kind of guides them through their sprints and stuff like that. And that's the difference in experience.
Yeah, there's a very big difference between working in like a corporate structure with project management, product management, and then working in like a startup type environment where there's like 2 developers and no project managers and no product development team, and you gotta kind of find your way through, undocumented, not such great. So there's a lot of different factors. It's really how this person's going to fit into your environment,
Absolutely.
Whatever your environment is.
But
If you're in that corporate environment, or that agency environment, or that startup environment, does this person's experience relevant? Does their coding style match your coding style? Does their way of thinking of problems match your way of thinking of problems, or your team's way of thinking of problems? So it's a very dynamic kind of moving target.
I've got a good question for the next panelist. It's like, being that you just landed your first gig, you accepted your first offer. What were you asked? How many interviews have you been on? Like, what were the questions being asked? Did they care about your certifications? Or did they want to see more?
Yeah, so I've definitely found that what everyone has said is correct in the sense of prioritizing a portfolio. Essentially, that's a huge piece of it. And I think that gets to the chasm between the actual developer seeing that and the HR, because the HR can look at your portfolio and it doesn't mean quite the same thing. So hopefully that gets passed along to the developers who can take a look and look at the code. Now, having been through a number of probably around 6 or so interviews, and that's adding maybe 20 or so more like phone screens that didn't turn into on-site interviews, definitely varies incredibly. Several of them were simply like walk in, sit down, here's my laptop, fix this coding problem in React or whatever it is, which I completely appreciate because that seems like a real life situation.
Did they give you access to Google?
In that case, no. That was like literally sitting over my shoulder watching me.
Did at PGA though.
Now at PGA, what I really appreciated was before stepping in. So regardless of the portfolio or anything, and I was actually going to ask you guys, the veterans in the field, if this seems like demeaning to you guys at all, but I found it great, which was, hey, here's this project we have set up. Build this thing the best way you can. It's very flexible. We just want you to use React. So I took it on, meaning, okay, well, they are looking for someone with full stack skills, so let me hook this thing up to a database, let me run the whole gamut and build, it's a simple project, but let me make it showcasing all my skills.
Yeah.
So that's an excellent test, right? That gives you a sense of, can someone do this in a relatively short period of time in a realistic environment? They can use Google, they can use their, previous experience and so forth. So that was great. On the other side of interviewing, what we hear a lot of, and I've gotten a few of these, is of course your traditional whiteboarding challenges. Right. And this tends to be based around those CS degrees, primarily, your binary search trees and data structures and all that. Sure. That being said, I think what Jason was pointing out too is like, to know your problem solving capabilities on the fly is more valuable than like, can you actually fulfill this specific requirement that we're trying to trip you up on, right? So I also went through a section of that with PGA. I went through similar exercises with other technical interviews. Can you see whether this thing is a palindrome or simple kind of algorithm problems, but let's see how you think it through. Right. So I would say, in short, I've definitely seen a variety of different exercises, and yes, those old school whiteboarding things are still out there, and from what I hear, they're even more prominent the bigger companies you go, Google,
Google
Facebook,
does.
I mean, they ask stupid questions like, if there's 30 high rises in Seattle, and how many windows are there in Seattle, and how much would you charge per window if you're a window cleaning company?
You gotta answer the most possible.
Apparently, that's one of the biggest problems in those cities is they're not building enough. So you could go into that whole thing. But yeah, actually, then there was recently an article that was like supposed to be some kind of surprise that these big companies are now doing away with the CS degree requirement finally. So they're starting to realize, hey, we can get some more top talent in here if we open the gates a little bit. So, but personally, I honestly think that send them a challenge. Can they actually do this? Because regardless of what you see, I can understand if you're looking at a resume and you see a project, but you're like, okay, what did this person truly contribute? And to this project, how much help do they have or whatever? So yeah, just give them something that's a reasonable, realistic expectation.
I was given that. I was given 2 hours to solve a problem at home with a project, and unfortunately, I don't know if this was part of the questions, but the question was use the IMDb. Right?
Yeah.
API to pull this information, and there's a problem. No, use the Airbnb to pull this basic information, a number of rents in this particular zip code. That's all it is. And the API had that. There was only problem. They had deprecated the API, and you couldn't get a key. So I had to. I didn't know the question was. Go back to the engine and say that. Maybe that was the whole question. I'm not spending. What I did is I know how to search GitHub, so I found somebody who, by mistake, had put their API key on there, used that API key, and handed in the code, and I never got an answer back.
That's awesome.
Maybe, yeah, exactly. Maybe they wanted to go and for me to stand up and say, no. The API key has been deprecated. What else can I use? Maybe that was what they were trying to test and all that. So you never know.
That's a great way to solve it. I mean, that's perfect.
I don't know about that, but maybe that's not what they want.
Or just build your own API and show them that.
Exactly. I could have faked in that back.
Great.
Rick, do you have any?
No, my only insights kind of goes into what Rick talked about, where it doesn't matter all of the acronyms and all of that stuff. To me, I kind of got, I would say, lucky or luckier than most people, as my first interview for a developer job got me the job.
Damn.
But I knew the person that was hiring me for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why she hired me, not just because she knew I was able to handle the development work, but she also knew all the other qualities that I had. So I feel like being able to convey those qualities on your resume instead of just pushing acronyms is very important. And I feel like if you can grab the attention of the person reading that based on all of the other qualifications, that goes a long way. So I feel like that's very important.
That's good. One of the things I do with my resume at the top is put the number of years, but I stopped and I only have 15 plus in certain months. And I'm going to tell you, it's 21.
And you throw your 5 hackathon wins on the course, and
let's open it up to you guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys, if you have a chance to hire, not if you already had a chance to hire, has the qualifications matter that much? And then give us a story as well as what you have and someone else that told us about it. And you talk.
Let them ask you questions.
All right. right, that's even better.
I have a computer science degree in Ecuador. I've been living Florida for 10 years and tried to look for a job here. For me, it was hard to learn how to do the things in the United States, which is something like I go over there and different technologies. I came for, I didn't came to the United States because my work as a computer science engineer. I came from, because I was a manager for a print shop.
Nice.
Developer
manager?
And then, that's why I came. And after a year I worked in a print shop, I found somebody who wanted to build some game. I said, yeah, I can do that. I never worked in JavaScript, ActionScript, the backend in Java, blah, blah, blah. Something I can never do. Okay, I tried. And I did this project and it was a bit good. And then that's when I was, okay, I'm gonna back this because this was really I like to do.
But this was a job you did, or this was a project for
no,
a job entry? Okay.
It's a small company. Actually, they closed after we got to finish the project and then they closed that. It was related to the gaming, casinos and games, the single, they know a lot of the games anymore, but yeah, I did that. But after that, since I learned ActionScript, was it last year's for ActionScript, and then
There's a tear coming down his eye because you reminded me.
Yeah.
and it was for me hard to find a job, and then after 2 years, I finally said, I have to learn.
Yep.
New technology like JavaScript and all that. And like almost a year ago, I found this language school, language school in California. At the beginning it was really technical about that because there's a beta. I'm a computer system engineer. It took me like 4 or 5 years to learn this. All these people want to learn this in 6 months.
Well, they can't.
I said,
They can't. The idea is to wet the whistle, right? The idea
I
is
said,
to.
no, they did.
Oh, he's a teacher
Huh?
at one of these boot
Go ahead,
camps.
go ahead, keep
They
going.
did.
No.
Yeah. I want maybe because most of the people who attend this boot camp they don't have the computer science degree. I was maybe one of the time. I was with them like for 6, 7. We just got there. And I saw how they ran. I learned with them. Because for me it was everything like you like I know some concept of computer science, but it's for me. Some like I remember I took like almost 2 years as in C++, blah, blah, blah. And that day we ran really quick, in a couple of weeks. Not just that, most of them, they are working right now. Big companies, they never work consistent.
Some examples right here of successful working people in the boot camp work. I think it's definitely working.
Yeah, I've heard about Lambda School. Their design, they actually just started less than 2 years ago.
Yes.
And their CEO is pretty funny. I follow him on Twitter, and he surprisingly followed me back. But anyway, yeah, their whole dynamic is that they front you the education, and then you don't pay anything until you get a job earning a certain amount, and then it's like 17% of your salary or something like that.
To pay them
Wow.
17% of your salary.
Yeah, but if you think about what opportunities that affords to people who otherwise couldn't, you know,
Absolutely,
front 20,000 or
absolutely.
something. So
For how long?
yeah, that's.
But there's a cap. I believe there's a cap.
The cap is
It's
really-
17%, but it goes to a certain cap. You
Yeah.
don't take 17% if you get a $250,000 offer. You're not going to take 15% of that. Yes, there's a cap.
There's a cap.
But yeah, if you think about that dynamic between a boot camp and a CS degree, we're talking about a system of education that's been around for how long, meaning college, and they're still using, I mean, when I took CS classes when I first went back before my boot camp, you know, you're still reading out of a book and just typing a problem up in like a 3-hour class and you come back next week, right? A boot camp, they're putting you immersed in that stuff. They've really fine-tuned the way to teach it, and they're teaching you this, you know, the newest technology. So they're really pushing and they're investing in you, especially if
Yeah,
they're.
like I learned a lot with them, learn Node, React,
bootcamps they're definitely good to get you started, right? And they might get you your first job, but you're going to learn the most at that first job. You know what I mean? So
sort of vectors in a slightly different direction. Everybody here codes. I'm systems engineering. So last time I coded something was probably about 23 years ago for the National Reconnaissance Office when they were rebuilding a PL1, PLC-based mainframe system to client server architecture. Remember, for me, coding, I'd rather do sort of the architecture. So I'm a UML guy, I'm a DODAP guy, I'm a MODAP guy, TOGAP guy. I'm a requirements guy, so I'm a Scrum Master, well, expired, but I had a Scrum Master certification. I have an expert systems engineering professional designation from the International Council on Systems Engineering. I had a healthcare informatics certification, I have a master's degree in systems engineering, systems management, systems engineering. I have enterprise resource planning, postgraduate certificate in that. I've got white papers out the wazoo that I've written solving problems for the government. I've contractors. I was in the military, worked on satellite systems, became a contractor, worked on more satellite systems and spy systems and law enforcement systems.
And did you put your certifications first? And
Yeah.
Did you feel people were reacting to
Well,
that?
the interesting thing is that when you're applying for a contractor position in the government, you don't really give a shit. You want to see the certification.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
So I don't know the rules of the road. If I'm looking to do some commercial consulting or commercial work,
Right.
They would go through these ridiculous exercises of having to document pages and pages and pages of things that you've done and prove it. What have you do requirements? Document all the cases that you built a requirement set, or the user stories, or you do use cases. And so you would end up with these huge matrices. It was like a spreadsheet.
Yep.
So one of the things that we kind of sum this all up in is it's situational dependent, right? So the government absolutely cares about your certification, where I don't. You know what I mean? So it's like know your audience a little bit.
It's got to be a certain.
Yeah.
You got to have at least a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. You got to have these.
And that caps your salary and everything.
Right. And frankly, now the interesting thing is that I was working on a development when I was working on the NRO project with the ground station. A lot of developers did not have degrees. They were just good, solid C++ folks. Dating myself for C++. I can go back into it further.
Still around.
I can go back to
So we're running a little short on time. I wanted to open it up to if we had any other questions.
I'll talk.
So we got a question back here.
So I've been about software years ago. I did like cloud infrastructure back in front end, work on other projects still. Finally about to start hiring people. But to what extent does the cloud architect, you have the cloud architecture, your back end, your full stacks, and then your front end. I don't, because I've always done it for myself, what to do in most positions, how do you limit their various roles? Essentially, if you're working on your front end, or you're working on your cloud architect, your systems architect,
He directs the
Troublemaker.
trouble.
So this leads into another question that I kind of started in the dev channel. It's like, what's the role of the front-end developer? Like we're kind of having this identity crisis and whatnot. And some of the questions were either like, as a front-end developer, should I know, cloud architecture?
I didn't understand your question. Was it how do you limit people from? How do you stop the back end guys from touching the front end?
You to hire a front end guy.
Okay.
Say that sort of them 8 grand, whatever it is.
Okay.
What are they going to limit their? What do I expect them to do?
Right. So like, what's your job role? Like, so being that you're cloud-based is the front end.
What can I expect from them daily?
So this I want to open it up to everybody. I think the idea of everybody should have a good understanding, or at least a base understanding of the whole stack, right? And we call it like the T-shaped skill base, right? Where it's like, as a front-end developer, my skills are very much aligned with animation, accessibility, and HTML, CSS, and interactive JavaScript, right? Those are my skills. That's my team. But I understand how to do backend JavaScript. I understand how to front. You know, I understand that there's a cloud and I can do stuff with it. But it's not. That's not my role, right? So it's like, if I were creating the thing, the job descriptions, I would silo them a little bit, but make sure that they're at least aware and can contribute. So that way, like if I'm blocked by a backend developer, that I failed, right? Backend should give me a view and some data, and I should be able to loop through that and display it and get it to go. I shouldn't be like, give me everything and I'll make it look good. That's not what I did. So like that's should know the stack, at least at a fundamental level, and have your areas of expertise, you know, that go down. So the T-shaped skill level.
But I don't think everything fits in the silo, right? I mean, the one thing I'm talking about is like, you know, we're talking about front-end developers, and we're now talking about front-end developers. When I started was you, but the only time that they would do programming is because they did, like you guys, ActionScript because it's Flash. But otherwise, front-end developers just made the website. And I started as a front-end developer. There was no intelligence. I created the form did its magic, and they gave me information, and I put it back on the screen. And that was my sole purpose in life. And that's changing where front-end developers with Angular, with React, with Vue, they're now becoming full developers, and they have to be as developer knowledgeable as the back-end people. And for your question about, you know, what should you ask for, I think you might, it depends on how big your project is. And maybe it shouldn't be like, oh, you need a front-end, wait a minute, hold on a second. You have a website that needs casino chips, therefore, oh, sorry, the formula says 1 front-end developers, 2 back-end developers, 1 IoT guy, 1, I think that's a tough way of thinking about it, because you might not need the back-end guy, because like you said, it's going to be simple and easy, you know, we're going to use back-end, it's going to be Firebase, where it doesn't need to be that complex, and the whole thing will be front-end, and that's it. And because it's all to be hosted by Roku or something else, there's not even DevOps.
Yeah, I think he's on the right track. It's really analyzing the problem that you have, right, and how you're going to solve it. So if for backend you're going to use something like Firebase, I think that most skilled front-end developers should be able to at least get that going and wire that up and consume that data. But to answer your question more specifically, I think what describes the web developer these days, the front-end developer these days, is more like being able to consume and provide data from a web application to an API or to a backend somewhere. I think that's your role as a front-end developer. Now, do you have to be more skilled than you were 10 years ago? Yes, very much so, because now you can handle a lot more within the front end that you don't need the backend for. You, a lot of times, don't need to rely on, you know, server-side rendering. You can do everything on the front end. So things that a back-end developer would be doing back then, you're now responsible for. So in that sense, it depends on the problem, right? So if you're just doing a, you know, simple thing that's not going to require a lot of interaction with JavaScript, you need a person that's less skilled, and he's still a front-end guy that maybe doesn't know how to use React, but he's still a front-end developer. So, but if your product requires a lot of that manipulation and stuff like that, that front-end developer needs to be a different level of a front-end developer that knows those skills. But as far as like hooking up something like Firebase, maybe that's not a requirement, but definitely a plus. You know, you on that edge. No, I was just saying it's like that gray area. You know.
Essentially, you know, pushing progressive WebSockets, try to push the envelope as far as an enterprise quality product.
So I only know my experience on this stuff, so it's really my opinion. It's very
Your opinion as a guy who normally does this for a living, chooses, figures out which the team is and what they should be composed of.
Yeah,
you want to listen to this.
So I'm very opinionated. So I come from the Silicon Valley startup world. That's where the foundations of my opinions come from, and then all the way up to So in Accelerator, nobody got a, I'm trying to use like a nice PC friendly word here. Nobody got to be picky and say, well, I'm not going to do that. Like, we worked on iOS, Android, C++ stuff, back-end things, Python things, all this, and just didn't get the luxury of saying, well, I only do this, or I only do that. Now, obviously, strategically, or even tactically, there's divide and conquer. Obviously, you're not going to have one person doing all of those things in a given sprint, because that's not practical. You're not going to get things done. But you just don't get to kind of be picky about it. So that's true in 2 startups I've worked at. And definitely, like, now on this agency role, I mean, none of my guys get to say, well, I don't do that, or I don't do the front end. Now, certainly there's skill sets where some guys are better at the front end than the back end, but they don't get to. And then specifically on your thing, which is the cloud, your question, the cloud I consider a foundational technology now. So it doesn't matter if you're front end or back end, you need to understand. And I'll give you, as
Not to be running not to be running your setting up your service frameworks.
but the front end guy is going to run it. So this is what I'm getting to. So industry wise, if you try to get a job at Netflix or Uber or Airbnb or Google and some of these other things, the stack has changed. People used to look at a stack this way and go, does this, or not stack, but disciplines, yeah, this way. And it's different now. Like, people used to think DevOps was like this one thing, and DevOps now has bled into front end and back end. And kind of like if you look at developers have brought the DevOps down to them, and vice versa, DevOps has brought them up. So you don't really get a choice as a front end developer in most of these companies, modern companies nowadays, to say, I don't need to know how my app is deployed. I don't need to know how my app runs. I don't need to know how it talks to the systems through here. It's just like, if you were to show up at Uber and say that, and say, no, I don't need to know that, we're not going to hire you.
But to that point, though, it's like, I agree that you should know how these things are run, but as a discipline, like, that is not something I've spent my time trying to figure out and understand. Like, I've perfected and honed my craft as like architecting the front end, worried about accessibility, optimizing JavaScript animations and performance.
Right.
There's just not enough time in the day to.
But that's a specialty, which is my point. Is like, you need to have specialties, but foundational technologies and processes and things like that, like cloud and deployment, that spans everything. It's just like saying, I don't need to know how to use a for loop. Everybody needs it.
Right.
So I would agree with that too. I mean, as far as to your point, my front end engineer might not need to know serverless frameworks or whatever, but you probably want them to be able to debug something on, in CloudWatch if it's AWS or whatever, right? So even though they might not be intimately familiar with every single AWS resource and every single thing about it, on their world and the world of a web application or whatever, they should know how the server works and the logs work and the way that AWS's console looks. And if you're deploying with like something like CloudFormation or serverless or whatever, they should know how that works and be able to set that up. So they're not totally lost and being like, all right, well, I'm glad you wrote my code, but I need some other guy to come in here and make sure that my local environment is set up correctly and whatever. So
you're talking specifically that project, right? They should know everything about how that project is laid out.
Exactly. And then that knowledge should expand as projects expand and as there are different projects or they're consuming different services. Like if you're working with AWS and you just have a web application, like maybe you know Dynamo and Lambdas and API Gateway, but maybe you're not really that intimately familiar with like SQS yet or SES yet. But at some point you might get into that, and those things might have their own nuances that you might need to learn. But I do think it's important for a front-end developer to understand the cloud.
To that point, though, it's like I can CRUD like nobody's business, but I'm not going to normalize a database. I'm not going to spend the time to figure out like what indexes do I need to make this query most optimal. Like I can CRUD, I can get information, I can display it on the screen, but like, my area of expertise is just not focused in that. So it's like, this goes back to the resume question where it's like you have 10 foundational languages on there, and then this and that, and this and the third. And like, those are 4 people's jobs in some of the resumes or job descriptions that I've seen.
Yeah.
It's like I can do it, but I'm not the best person to make this production ready. So to answer your question a little more directly in this context is, what is your production needs, right? Do you need that back-end person? Go hire that. Do you need a front-end person to really architect and figure out, accessibility and performance and other things like that? And that's the first hire you go for. So try to figure out where you go, because all these guys are correct in the context of you should know your whole stack. And I think I made that statement as well. But going deep into any one of those things, it's like that's I'm not going to do that.
There's a leap though between making a secondary index on a database and understanding where that database works and is updated and whatever else. So I'm not saying be an expert on everything, but you should be able to go in there and do some damage across the services.
I tell people I know not to be stupid. I know not to be dangerous.
Entire stack all the time.
At 100%. That's the story.
No.
I mean,
the hiring manager or somebody would put together a team that understands what your program and what you're doing, what you're building, but then fill those specific holes. Like, say you need something more front end, or more animated, and you hire for that, and then have.
I'm going to be.
It's just one guy. If you have 5 guys, then you have more limited. If there's one guy, he needs to know everything, right? Yeah. Who's one or two developers, they pretty much should know everything.
There is.
I do everything now. I have one person working for me. And basically, sometimes I have to go to the cost. But if I'm out in a marketing meeting or a networking event, and then I have to go back, jump into like React, and then serverless, and then these APIs, and then you're just jumping all over the place.
Context switches as well.
Yeah. Whatever your weakest thing is what I would say you should hire. Whatever you don't want to do.
I don't want
Then
to
hire a React. I missed the beginning of your question, but if you're a back-end developer, you're doing all that back-end stuff with serverless and everything like that, you feel really comfortable with it, and you own that, and you just want a guy to handle the front end, then by all means. But maybe he doesn't know that.
kind of going towards more of a business role and then wanting to hire on those pieces.
One thing I haven't heard from, and this is something that you would take on originally, would be that you might want to think of someone that's either, it's similar to what you said, it's exactly what you said, but I would use a different person, an architect. And that architect's purpose is not to be the one that does everything, but to be able to delegate everything, or at least put it all together. And
Then
design
you'd require
something.
to hire somebody else to do it.
What's that?
Then you'd require to hire somebody else to do it.
I know, but the answer, if he's an entrepreneur and he wants success, he has 2 ways of doing it. Making all the mistakes and then eventually getting it right, or hiring someone that has made all the mistakes and knows how to get it right, And that's an architect. That's not.
One-time hire?
It could be, absolutely, 100%. And I think it one.
I was thinking about that.
You could do that if it doesn't require a lot of if the people are not so far off, and you're right, everybody should have a connection setting. I agree with you on what I'm saying. But sometimes we have a person that just doesn't understand anything but the CSS. That's what they do. And in like you mentioned earlier, in Airbnb there is someone who is a master at notifications and how they work and all that. That's all they do. And yes, you could hire. You're absolutely right. You could hire someone initially to architect and step on the way if it is a project that doesn't require anything else like that. Absolutely. And then sometimes the architect, they do more than just that. They do the CSI, they do the building, they do the sort of connecting constantly of the separate work that gets together and all that. So in that case, it's not a one-time hire. But you're right. You could definitely.
To expand on that idea, something that I've done, my consulting business, Cotton Strawberry, I've been hired specifically to do the UI rebranding and stuff. So a lot of people, a lot of companies have tech divisions, but they're not front-end developers, they're not designers, so they hire out for that. And I've done multiple projects for this one company where it's like, I just laid down a foundation, I heard their needs, figured out what stack they're in, and built them a component or a style guide, as it were. Like I built them their bootstrap to where they can utilize this across many things. So that might be something you might consider as well. Because if the front end is the spot where you don't want to do, maybe that is a one-time hire, right? Just bring them in for 3 months, kind of architect that whole thing out, and give them get your code base off and running in the right front foot.
If I'm you, what I would do, giving more background on this, is I would probably, and this is purely my personal opinion, is it sounds like you kind of have the back end a little bit more under control. I would go out, look for a full stack engineer with a heavy, preference or a heavy, more exposure to the front end, and then teach that person the back end the way that you do it, the way that you want it done. This way, as you kind of transition more into that business role, you can have this person start transitioning more into kind of a full stack role, because while you're handling that business stuff, you can still kind of check his work, her work, but you also can kind of teach them your way of doing things, right? Because, if it was me, what's that?
Hire me is what they're saying.
Yeah, hire Jermey. I mean, I can't go wrong with Jermey, so sure. If he's the right person.
So, how do you collect requirements or user stories? How do you manage it? Who oversees it? Who does the architecture?
They'll say a little piece of paper on the wall, just throw a dart.
Well,
it's kind of what we're working on.
You guys got to start programming. I'll figure out what the requirements are. Hopefully we'll leave it, but realistically, that doesn't work. I've seen too many failed projects with your tax dollars, by the way.
Right.
To tell you that
Where there wasn't enough requirements set up.
But the requirements weren't done properly.
Right.
They weren't documented, they weren't promulgated to the developers, or part of the problem is that a lot of times developers don't know how to ask the end user what they really need.
Sure.
And the whole idea, you gave me exactly what I asked for, but it's not what I wanted.
Absolutely.
That's a real problem.
Just to get a llama, not a mule.
And it's just, your systems engineer has to manage that. Your architect has to figure out how it all pieces together, at least at a 10,000-foot level, and then you start pushing it down to the people that can execute. But what I'm hearing here is everybody here does that. Where are your requirements coming from? How are you managing all that? How do you,
Well, I mean, in the motto of Facebook, build fast, break often, or fail fast, or whatever.
No, but
So it's
you have his ex company to blame. When IBM created RAD, that's what they were trying to do. Trying to create eventually Agile. They were trying to eliminate the need for requirements.
Well, so
40,000 documents.
All right, so, right. I get
change
that.
over
I dealt with these things called procedurals, and I think I had procedurals in the government space.
Oh my.
What's that?
Oh my.
Oh my. Contracts, different deliverable line items, and the government would give you stacks of paper. Eventually, the government has moved more toward Agile, more to a Scrum type architecture, reflecting user stories. But when you're dealing with a big corporation, my brother works for IBM. I did the government work. It's the same stuff. The thing is that a lot of the old timers revert back to old form again, which is I want documentation. I want this much documentation enough so the project can get done, and then we'll iterate.
But I don't need a fully fleshed out item.
But then you start getting into a waterfall approach then too. It's like you started to look at waterfall, whereas you monolithically deliver something,
yeah.
then you monolithically deliver something, and eventually you deliver something, and it's probably not.
You're telling me these modern companies start with Agile and eventually go to waterfall? I'm not making fun of Arrow. I'm just saying.
I can tell you from my brother's experience doing healthcare IT that he ran into that, and I can tell you from my experience doing work for the National Counterterrorism Intelligence Center, we ran into that when, it's just the government likes paper. A lot of big organizations like paper. It's a lot of CYA stuff. In the government, for the government projects, it's basically stay off the front page of the Washington Post. I mean, that's the way it sort of works.
I have one question about it.
But I still,
You have a question?
My question is, how do you do requirements? When I hear everybody here talking about coding, how do you collect requirements, user stories?
Because we don't have any PMs in here, and that's usually, and the customer-facing people and sales technique, this is the closest thing we got to that one too. But,
Yeah, I
you
can
know.
tell you how Levatas does it. So we'll go in and do. There's two sides of this coin. Customer experience. So we'll go and find out what's the company about or what's the product about, and all those kind of things. So up front, even though it might look like it's agile, it's really just waterfall. People will call it agile all day long. But up front, it's like, okay, let's talk about what is this, what is the experience like, what is all the, and we kind of ignore the technical limitations and that kind of stuff. And so a lot of that is like vision casting and design thinking and stuff like that. And then we'll come in with system thinking or ecosystem thinking. Okay, so this is what we think of ourselves in the world, whatever world we live in. And then we'll come and say, okay, here's how that is going to work inside this ecosystem of your company or whatever. So again, that's all waterfall. We call it agile, but at the end of the day, we're documenting.
Semantics games here, but
yeah.
The thing is, how will you manage it?
So the output of all of those things are usually PowerPoints, or in our case, we don't do anything ugly, so it's always like these really pretty charts and flows and all these stuff. You've seen these things? Yeah. So, and those are output, and then that informs the technical decision. So from that point, then it's agile. Then you get backlog, you get
Okay, but then, and you're managing it. You have some sort of system to manage that.
Yeah, we Jira, and then you get a backlog, you get the sprint schedule, and all that kind of stuff. And then we turn on the agile again, and it's like, hey, we might change stuff, we might add some stuff in the backlog, and
Right.
We do the same thing at PGA basically. Essentially the way it would work is we have a product team, then we have technical project managers, and the technical project managers kind of are paired with a team of engineers, right? So the product managers will go out and be the ones that are talking to actual customers, end users of the site, right? So the product managers are determining, what do they need, what do they want, what would be nice to have, whatever it is, right? And they'll break that off into an epic in Jira, like a big project, and then break that down into user stories, and the user stories are assigned based on sprints, and the sprints are managed by the technical project manager, but then kind of like giving those up to actual developers that we do work, and then move them through Jira. So the user stories are kind of on that, where the product managers are the one that are talking to the actual users, technical project managers are kind of talking to the product managers, and that's how it's done at a company like PGA. Smaller companies that don't have any time, and developers kind of just manage their own thing, and it's one director or team lead or whatever, and that person will put a pseudo sprint together and work on whatever the powers that be tell you to work on and get it done. So I think that depending on the size of the company and
O&M is such a joy.
What's that?
On operations maintenance, when you don't have documentation, when you don't have any of that, somebody's sort of sitting there just developing
just whatever,
but
just whatever, right?
But
No,
you have-
and you have to upgrade it or maintain it or whatever, and you're screwed. So now you got to go back to the beginning and you start all over.
I don't know, are you under the belief that we work without documentation? I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Nobody has ever worked with documentation. I've never been in a company. I've been doing this for 20 years.
There's documentation, we just don't look at it.
Yeah, documentation is called the legacy code. That's the only documentation that actually is true. And I have an example of that, of how Norwegian Cruise Line failed completely because the legacy was the code didn't match the documentation. When they did what you're thinking that every developer is they reinvented the backend, it broke everything because they were following the documentation, not the code. But we all work with requirements, and what has changed is that it's more minute, it's more direct, it's more focused on what we're doing as developers. So we're not guessing. Sometimes we have all the images already. We have the design layout already done for us by official designers. At Skype, I would get printed layouts of what the web page should look like, what the changes with the border, with everything. This is as close as waterfall as possible to think about it. But it was per user story, per small chunk of changes that I need to do.
As long as
We always do that,
And
and
then,
there is
and
no
then
company.
somebody coming in after you has
Yeah.
something to look at.
We had the Palm Beach Tech Hackathon that was, part of Palm Beach JS. And, we had even their teams, they have 24 hours to build something, and they were not just typing away. They were all documented, they were sitting down, they have big boards, so they would choose certain things. They might, as modern, there was stickies on it, there was changes that can happen dynamically.
Time for one more question, I want to open it up to you two, if you have any.
Did you guys have any questions?
From this side? No? All right, you two get the arm wrestle over it. Which one gets it?
Has anybody been through the software acquisition process?
What do you mean by that?
Buying a company?
Somebody's buying you.
I mean,
I just sold my company. So it wasn't software, but I sold the company. So like, you're a software company, you're buying. Is anybody?
Yeah.
Well, what was the direction you're asking? Like being bought or
So
buying something?
you're the acquisition team, you're looking at a fresh code set.
Right.
What are you looking for? What are your
Rule number one is you need the IP GPL license. If it is, to figure out what it's going to cost to rewrite it or whatever. Because
Really?
So okay,
You have what license?
GPL,
in your IP.
It's on GitHub.
What's so bad about GPL?
So
For the
yeah.
software the company buys.
it's considered a non-company friendly license. So I'll give you an example. So when Axway bought Accelerator, we spent $1 million, $1 million for a company to come in and go through all of our code. And at the end of the day, really all they did was look at who had GPL code. Because Axway or IBM, whoever these guys are that buy these companies, they could get sued. And at the end of the day, the product that they're trying to make, that they made for tens of millions of dollars of VC funding, can now be redistributed for free. And all somebody has to do is just some disgruntled employee pushes it to GitHub, and then all of your IP is gone. It is the most touchy thing in acquisitions is that one thing. And again, like Accelerator, we're a company of 140 people. We paid $1 million to go through a code audit. And that was the number one thing that they wanted. So that even when you're building a product, consider that. Like, it's okay if you're building a WordPress site for your marketing thing or whatever, because that's not really your IP. You're not getting acquired for that. But the thing that is your software, your product, your company, your backbone.
What about for something like an MIT license, like for instance,
MIT is fine.
like you build your app on React and you did this special thing, whatever, and you sell it off.
Well, React doesn't have an MIT license.
Now it does.
Now it does?
Yeah, it does.
Because of WordPress.
After all that whole thing.
Because of WordPress.
Later, and they're like, all right,
It was because of WordPress. They changed it.
They changed it because people were
MIT is fine.
because of WordPress. You're right.
You want, like,
Gutenberg
from a
specifically.
business/product perspective, if you're building a product that you want to sell one day, MIT, Apache, those are good licenses. GPL stays.
BSD.
Or any big libraries, GPL that people use.
Yes, you can.
Well, if you ask me what, like, maybe like really popular libraries that people use in GPL.
You mean like a node npm is GPL? Yeah. So if you were to have a node, an npm package in your core software that you're selling and has GPL, your entire thing is GPL. And so what would happen is that the buying company would go, you need to change that. And so then what would happen is you would have to go through and figure out how much is that going to cost for me to rip that out and then replace it or write it myself before they would actually buy it.
But you can use Node and use things like that. It's just not your
He's saying
library.
node packages that have GPL licenses. People
Any
look
package.
at their
It
licenses.
doesn't have to be node. I was just using it.
Also, like React.
React is fine. React is fine.
But it isn't your core product. Your product isn't an extension of React. And therefore, you inherited that library. So therefore, you must release it back to the web, which is what GPL says, right? If I use anything GPL, I have to not only use it, but release it back. So
Yeah, React and Node, they're not licensed, but someone could create a package that's GPL, and now GPL infects everything.
Yeah, I think this question was if you use a React component, let's say library, that now uses that GPL license that would infer the GPL, right?
No, but not if you're utilizing it. Only if you're extending it. Not if one of the components is some GPL.
No. If you're using GPL code in your code, then your code is by definition GPL.
So my fancy websites for hotels that takes care of the hotels is using the what's it, prime components, right? Beautiful prime, and then now I have to stop using them, or else.
No, you can keep using them, but that means everything that you built is GPL.
And someone can sue you. Does that
Even though
mean
you have
it's
to pay this
personal?
guy $1 million
No, you
to
just
figure
have
it
no
out.
IP over it, is what he's saying.
No, it doesn't matter. So
'Cause they-
the way GPL works is like think of it as a frying pan. Because I had a lawyer explain it this way. Think of it as a frying pan, and you stick an egg in there, and you're frying the egg. Okay, that's great. And then you stick, something else in there, some pancake batter, or whatever. Like as soon as it touches the frying pan, the pancake goes everywhere,
Right.
and it encompasses everything.
Yeah.
So that's GPL. If you insert any GPL code into your MIT code, it's all GPL.
That's a very good thing to know. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm curious if any super popular NPM libraries are GPL licensed. Like,
There's some.
I'm just curious which ones they are.
What's that? That's
Well,
a
that'll
problem.
definitely be something to watch out for when I'm using any packages now.
Now here's the trick. Is like you can use them. There's nothing wrong with it, and even using them in a proprietary software, or whatever, as you're doing it, it's fine. But just know that someone can redistribute it, and you can't get sued. At least from the code level. From other angles, you can. You can roll that back a million ways legally, but from the code level, there's nothing wrong with redistributing that. And then again, if you're trying to be acquired, you're trying to make a product.
Well, I think that's about time. So I want to thank the panelists for coming out. It was a lot of fun. We don't have to go home, but I just wanted to officially cut things off. You guys don't have some side conversations.
All this conversation was GPL license.
That's right. Now you're on tech.
It's worth the ride just tomorrow.
If we talk